All right. How goes it? It's been a minute since I've been here. Had a lot of adjustments to make. So much has happened since then. I don't even know where to begin. A little catching up with me. School is going good, but I'm getting a little behind in coding class, so we are going to be... what's up, kitties? We're going to be spending the week on Python. I'm getting better at that. Everything else has been good. Everything else has been really fine. Learned how to snowboard. That's been really cool. Getting used to spring conditions. That shit is ass. And falling all over the place. But it's what it is. Yeah, you know, it's like hard to keep this stuff going. And it's like, I said it before, half the struggle is just showing up. But that's like, or half the job is showing up. But that's such a struggle too. And like, the second you have other things going on that aren't what you're used to, it's like, well, now I need a week to recover from the last week. It's interesting what you need to do to train your brain. On top of that, I don't even know. Got everything else going on in the world, and then on top of all that, Twitch gets boring. It's now, well, they go and ban Destiny, but then everybody else seems to just keep, like, they figure out it's okay to still watch his videos on YouTube. And so now you have these like banned streamers from Twitch, like Vosh and Destiny, that literally everyone's content is coming from on like political Twitch, or at least over 60%, you know, definitely more than half. And you can't even hear it from the horse's mouth. You got to hear it through the grapevine. You got to get like, I mean, you can if you watch YouTube, but it's like something I really appreciated before about Twitch was that if someone had something to say, they could get on Discord and talk about it. And now that's not happening. I just think about like, I don't even know, like what would this year be for politics if like Destiny wasn't around? It would be the most droll thing in the world. There was nothing anybody put out as far as content is concerned except for like, I mean, like there's a few people, there's a few really good people. I could point out some, but it's like everyone's been reacting to things. And ever since Orange Man Bad isn't trendy anymore because he's not on Twitter, he's not president, like they have no ammo. And so they can only work, and like the only thing they can work with is the least common denominator, which is whoever's producing the most content and is the most relevant. And that happens to be Destiny. Like Hassan's stuff is like too pathetic to work against. Like they can do it for a while, but it's like, what are you gonna do? Because there's no traction there. Like the cool thing about Destiny is that once you yell at him long enough, he gets mad and he yells back. And like, that's amazing. That's huge for you as a viewer or as a streamer or as a content creator in general. It's like someone who's a way bigger fish than you is reacting to you as if you're as big as them. And like, I mean, not as big as them, but pretty close. And like, that is an attitude that like you don't get from everybody. It's gonna be really interesting to see how this like next year plays out. I think about people like Prime K's. Prime K's literally wouldn't be here. Prime K's literally wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you know, Destiny being here and single-handedly being like, hey, all this stuff you're saying about Prime K's, maybe you should think about it and like take a second opinion and maybe also ask some more people about it. Like everyone, including me, we were all ready to just be like, screw this guy. And now he's on Twitch and Destiny's not. It's weird. Anyway, that was my thing. I'm even gonna get DMCA'd because I didn't turn the music off, but it is what it is. We're gonna switch gears. We gotta do work today. I wanna like, before I start though, is there a way, appearance? Is there a dark mode, please? Not really. It is what it is. All right. We're going to now go to C-SPAN. I like looking at politics. If anybody comes on who knows Python, and I'm literally going to be saying that every 10 minutes or something, like they can say what's up because I'm going to have a hell of a time working on my stuff today and could totally use the help. Get that going. Get that going. All right. What am I interested in? What do we got going on today? Lincoln joined news conference, foreign ministers, news headlines, and viewer calls. Always the good stuff. We'll definitely hit up the viewer calls. The 9:30 calls. We got some Ukraine stuff. DOJ budget. Okay, that's boring. Yeah, I remember seeing that speech. Do I am surprised there's not like some Katanji Jackson stuff. That's the votes on April 4th. That's so cool. That's so exciting. Here, we'll just go into viewer calls.
And the potential threat from Russia's nuclear arsenal. Washington
That's a
Journal
great
is
start.
next.
That's a great start to the video. Hey, what's up? What be this? This is C-SPAN. We're doing boring stuff before I get to have fun. This is really fun. These are viewer callers. C-SPAN does. One second. C-SPAN does a thing where people, like anybody, any American, can just call. They have a Republican phone line. They have a Democrat phone line. And they just give their opinions. This is the voice of the people. They got things to say. It is a hoot. I love listening to it every time.
Israeli and Arab diplomats to assist Ukraine. Later today, the president's budget request for 2023 will come out with a reported $800 billion plus slated for national security issues. You can discuss.
What's up with you? We got this the boring stream, but we're getting shit done. All right, we got productivity. So I'm doing homework. Have I called them? No, I don't like poking the bear. You know, I like to sit back. I like to see it all happen. You know, I like to react to it, but I don't want to poke the bear. It seems a little like unethical to like, I don't know, stream and call at the same time. I might one day. We'll see. But yeah, I just I do this like on top of whatever work I'm trying to do. It's like important enough that I might care sometimes when I'm bored of what I'm working on, but it's boring enough that I usually do my work. And that's what we're trying to do so that I can play Elden Ring in like an hour and a half. At least I'm hoping. An observer, exactly.
488-8002. If you want to text us
this
morning, 202.
We laugh on the sidelines, you know. We don't play the game. Not yet, anyway.
2748803 is how you do that. You can post on Facebook and on Twitter. You can also follow the show on Instagram. As the president has returned to the United States from overseas, new polling specifically targets how he's doing when it comes.
How deep in Elden Ring? I got 3 characters now. I've at New Game Plus with the first one, and then I'm about to beat the game with my third character. My third character's a mage, and I had way more fun playing him than my swordsman. I got pretty far with the swordsman, but then I stopped because I don't know. I was looking at builds, and I saw the Rivers of Blood build these days, and I was like, man, that looks really fun, but that looks way too easy. And I want to see I want to see what they do with swordsman, like samurai builds, after like another patch before I play that build again. But my mage build's really fun. That thing's great. Wing of Estelle is just super OP. It's a good time.
It's from the AP this morning, and they write this in their write-up of what they found, saying there's little doubt that Mr. Biden has been able to maintain unusual unity among allies during this war.
Have you been playing it? How far have you got?
Caution, particularly in his speech in Warsaw. Mr. Biden also reminded Americans of his proclivity for misstatements at a precarious time for his presidency. Just 26% of Americans have faith that Mr. Biden can manage a crisis or the military, according to the last week's AP NORC poll. There's also been a mixed response to Mr. Biden's approach to Russia. Although Americans have been skeptical of getting involved in another foreign crisis, they've also watched in horror as Mr. Putin continues to raise Ukrainian cities despite an array of punishing sanctions. Only 30.
What do you think of the nerfs they did to some of the moves and weapons? I think it's pretty appropriate. I think that, I don't know. It's just like, I think the problem is that when they nerfed things, the adjustments they did to other stuff, like, made those things way too powerful. So it's like, you know, I get why they nerfed Hoarfrost Stomp. That shit was too quick. It did way too much damage. Not that deep. Okay. So what they did with the last nerf, they like pretty much they nerfed ice, but they upped like sorceries as a whole, and they made a lot of sorceries pretty useful. So mages, and then they also like I think they nerfed like a really powerful sorcery, but it's like okay because they made a few better. So it's like wizards lost one of their main tricks, but they also earned like some really good cards to put in their deck, you know? And then yeah, like the sword of something in flame. I can see why they nerfed that. You know, that one. They just like I think some of the math they did or the scaling they did was just like really messy in this game, and they just ran with it anyway. And now they're kind of tweaking it back down a little bit. But God, they need to fix some of the adjustments they made to Arcane because Arcane's stupid right now. Like the Rivers of Blood build that you can do with that weapon is just like crazy. You can get a bleed proc with one hit, and you can like get and you have just like insanely high arcane, which means that once you kill the dude, arcane is your luck stat essentially. It affects item drop chance. So once you kill the dude, you are you're getting like the best possible loot every single time. It's so ridiculous. It's absolutely this is my kitty, yeah. Show the cat. This is Addie. Hello, Addie. Say hello. Hi. Hi. She's the little one. Oh, I'm sorry. I know she's getting sick of this. She's the long one. Long kitty. Yeah, so Arcane is like the Arcane Rivers of Blood is just stupid. Everyone's using it in PvP because it's just like you can't ignore it. And then like PvE, it's even more stupid because you just get crazy drops. Her name is Addie. She is she's she's one of the two. She's the sister. She's the little sister. She's also the runt. And then I have another kitty named Ferlin, and he's quite big, and we'll see if he shows up later. Yeah, Addie is she's my lap friend. She likes to hang out on my lap all the time, no matter what we're doing.
Saying Mr. Biden's approach has been, quote, about right, while 56% said Mr. Biden's...
Well, I hope you are enjoying Elden Ring, and I hope you're enjoying the build that you are currently doing. What do you... Yeah, feel free to let me know what you're rocking with.
On Russia. Again, the Associated Press with that poll. It was on the Sunday shows yesterday that several members of Congress had reaction to the president's speech in Warsaw, particularly those ad-libbed remarks. We'll start with the House Armed Services member, California Democrat Ro Khanna, on those remarks and what it does on the impact
what a cool name
in Ukraine.
The United States policy is not regime change. It's a negotiated end to this war. Now, look, when Putin in Mariupol is bombing theaters with 300 kids there, where there's a sign saying children, and he's bombing that, any human being would express frustration, and the president was speaking from his heart, but it's not the U.S. policy to seek regime change.
He has a habit or a propensity, I don't want to say it's a habit, he has a propensity to sometimes say the quiet part out loud. Like when he said, well, if it's a minor incursion, that's one thing. I'm sure that was a conversation that occurred in the Situation Room that he just blurted out loud. And there are a lot of people in this world who would probably like to see Putin go because he's been bad news for an awfully long time.
Oh yeah, this is an interesting thing to talk about. So the president was like, I don't think Putin should be in power. And a lot of people are like, does that mean you're trying to overthrow Putin? And I think it's perfectly appropriate for him to think and say what he said. And I think it's also perfectly appropriate for him to have to explain that. It's not going to be a policy change.
But when you're the president of the United States, you can't just say stuff like that.
I got Python stuff.
Shooter, he's deeply empathetic. I'm sure he's so frustrated.
Oh, lists
of children, women being killed. But I think the White House has been clear. They have been disciplined, and they've said we need a negotiated end to this war. That has to be with Putin as a settlement. It's not the policy regime change. There's no support in the Democratic Congress for regime change. We've been the party against regime change for the past 20 years.
But do you think that Putin is going to take this and try to use it to his advantage?
Putin takes anything and tries to use it to his advantage. But let's see what we need to do. We need to make it as difficult for him. Look at what this president has done, because I heard Senator Scott earlier. We've provided the anti-tanks. We've provided the anti-aircrafts. We've provided over $2 billion of assistance. We have the most punishing sanctions. This president has rallied NATO. Look, it's easy
Dude's
to
popping off
and say, oh, you could have done one more thing. But this president, by and large, has been tough, and we're going to get Putin to negotiate to bring a ceasefire to the war.
Just one element on the latest when it comes to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, if you want to call in and comment on that or other factors. Again, 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans.
Bye, Kitty. I love you.
202-748-8002. And you can also text us at 202-748-8003. The Washington Post highlights the Secretary of State who is traveling overseas in Israel to talk about efforts to assist Ukraine, particularly talking with Israeli and Arab diplomats, saying, quote, we'll be talking throughout various means of support that Israel and other countries can give to Ukraine, whether it comes to security assistance or whether it comes to humanitarian assistance, economic assistance, or again, making sure that sanctions are implemented, Mr. Blinken told reporters. That will be a conversation that's ongoing throughout this trip. The story highlighting the fact that Israel, the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. aid, has come under criticism from the Ukrainian president for refusing to provide security assistance to Kyiv or impose sanctions on Russia. It also highlights that the United Arab Emirates, another key ally, has offered tepid statements at the UN Security Council, even as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, has equated neutrality to cowardice. That's in the New York Times. Speaking of the Secretary of State, U.S. News and World Report reporting this morning that the Secretary will test for COVID-19 today, having after met the Israeli Prime Minister in Jerusalem the previous day. The Prime Minister is isolating at home after testing positive for COVID-19. That was his office reporting that on Monday. Again, this U.S. News story saying that our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, will test today. So those are elements that you can roll into conversations when it comes to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. From Cartersville, Georgia, Democrats line. We'll start with Eddie this morning. Eddie, good morning. You're first.
Yes, I was just thinking that it is bad that Russia is doing that, but look like Ukraine, when they had all this time to put all this how can I say it, weapons together, they should have been the richest country, in Ukraine. So it's just bad that they couldn't put their people in place in Moscow to that's all I got to say.
Okay, that's Eddie. We'll hear from
Wise
Pat.
words.
Pat is in Willis, Texas, also on our line for Democrats. Good morning. You're next.
Good morning. Fox News is now named Fox RT. They play Tucker Carlson over in Russia.
Fox RT.
I mean, it's really hard to look at a Republican and not just call them traitors.
So how that relates to the current invasion in Ukraine?
Well, they're on Putin's side. Republicans are actually supporting Putin. It's disgusting. They're all traitors, every one of them.
Okay, we'll go to Al. Plymouth, Massachusetts, Republican line. You're next up.
Good morning. I'm absolutely amazed. This is like we're all watching a movie. Every day I hear from this president, we have to do this, we have to do that. It's this inaction. And all the leftists and the intellectuals, when we go to school, we say, well, how did the Holocaust happen? How could that possibly happen? This is how it happened. This is
so when you use the word inaction, what do you mean?
This is wild.
We're bystanders. Where was
Well,
Biden
bystanders
on the border? Why is he letting Putin set the tone? When America does not lead, others will. How come the left does not understand that?
This dude's accent is so good.
What do you mean?
under Kennedy. We lost Cuba under Kennedy. We lost North Korea under Harry Truman.
Okay, but when it comes to Ukraine, when you say America doesn't lead, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Ronald Reagan led. He confronted the Soviet Union, and it fell. That's what America needs to do. That's why we are here. This is why God has established America. Lead in a dark world.
Okay, Calvert, St. Thomas, Virgin Island, independent line. Hi.
Yes, good morning. I'm calling from St. Thomas, Virgin Island. I tried to get you now for over 10 years. First time I get in. Anyway, what I want to say, right? You know, America went into when they helped the Europeans after World War II, right? They helped them and they rebuild them. And I'm saying 70 years later, the Europeans supposed to be able to do more to help themselves. Now America could assist them, but Germany, France, they're some of the richest countries in the world, and they should be able to defend themselves. Look at China. China can defend itself. Cuba can defend itself. And South Korea. I mean, the Europeans are the same themselves. How could you let America did so much for them? So I think what they should do after this is done, said and done, it is too late now. Tell them, listen, all the European countries have to have nuclear weapons. Everyone, they have to have their own nuclear arsenal because America can't always be there for them, you know?
Okay.
And if they don't...
That's Calvert there in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. So that's the sampling of the first couple of callers for this hour. We'll continue on for the hour. Again, if you want to call us on the lines, you can do that. You can text us at 202-748-8003. Our Twitter and Facebook pages are open if you want to post there as well. When it comes to his part, the Ukrainian president...
Who would ever want to post on Facebook when you can get your, phone call broadcasted to the airwaves? That's so cool.
Telling journalists on Sunday, Russian journalists specifically, that his government would consider declaring neutrality and offering security guarantees to Russia, echoing earlier statements. The pact would include keeping Ukraine nuclear free, he said. But Zelensky added that adopting a neutral status would need to be guaranteed by third parties and put to Ukrainian voters in a referendum after Russian troops withdraw within a few months of once Russian troops leave. And Russia almost immediately banned Zelensky's remarks from being published. The Russian Federal Agency regulating communications from Moscow issued the ban on Sunday, said there would be action taken against the Russian media outlets that took part, including, quote, those that are foreign media outlets acting as foreign agents. Again, that's just some of the reporting coming from Ukraine this morning. And when it comes to their efforts over there, you can comment on that, including U.S. efforts as well. Will in Sacramento, California, Democrats line. Go ahead, you're next.
I know I'm up early in the morning, but I couldn't sleep.
He couldn't sleep.
100%. You know, all this polling crap and all this stuff, it don't make any sense. Why are we polling people? You know, when there's a war going on, and the man trying to do everything he can to help Ukraine get out of this situation, and we're worrying about polls. You know, I'm for everything that Joe Biden is doing. I mean,
particularly when it comes to Ukraine, what do you think he's done well then?
Everything.
Everything.
Well, give me a specific example.
I don't have to give you specific.
What is this, bro? Don't get mad. He's trying to run a show. You can't just be like, man, Biden is. It's you can't do it either way. You can't say Biden's done everything wrong, and you can't say Biden's done everything right, because neither are true, man. There's just so many oh my god, there hasn't been a single black and white issue that's happened since fucking his presidency started. It's so ridiculous.
Example, he's doing the best he can. Always try to put.
He's so good though. He's can you? Well, what has he done that's good? Man, everything. Why you gotta ask these stupid questions? Well, can you give us an example? Man, I don't have to give you an example. Come on.
People on the spot ask dumb questions. We don't call them to ask those questions.
I'm trying to elaborate what you're commenting on when you make comments, so I'm trying to get out of you as far as what you're trying to say behind that. That's all I'm trying to do, but go ahead and finish your thought.
I love this guy.
With what the president is doing. Okay, would you rather have Trump in there right now?
He can't answer that. He can't answer that.
Carolina, independent line.
You can't ask them how they feel about this shit.
Hey, Joe, thanks for taking my call.
First, let me say, I don't think Putin invaded Ukraine for Hunter Biden's laptop. But I will say, am I still on the air?
Yeah, you go ahead.
I think he did.
What I would like to suggest is every night in this country, there are 32 National Hockey League teams that play hockey. In Washington, D.C., we have Alex Ovechkin, who is clearly, and I love Alex Ovechkin, the greatest hockey player in the world. And he's making close to $9 million a year to skate on the ice in the free capital of the United States. We need to start sending these people back to that country and send a message to the citizens of Russia that if you're going to support Putin, you're not welcome in our country.
What do you think that accomplishes, though?
I think what that accomplishes is we have oligarchs in our country. And those people, those owners of those National Hockey League teams, every team has 5 to 6 star Russian players making millions of dollars in this country. They're here because of our free country. They're not going to make, Alex Ovechkin is not going to make $9 million skating on the ice in Moscow, where he's from. He's from Moscow.
That's Ed
But
there
I
in
think
that.
if we start
Go ahead.
sending them back.
Okay, that's Ed in That's Ed in North Carolina. Thank you, Ed. That's again Ed talking about another component when it comes to this, and looking at analysis over the president's ad-lib remarks. CNN with a piece this morning online. You can find it there. They asked some questions considering the remarks themselves, including did the president's comment dangerously escalate already high tensions and worst confrontation between the West and Russia in decades? Has Mr. Biden shaken international conference and his so far strong leadership in bringing the NATO alliance together in a united front against Moscow? Well, the notion that President Biden hopes to topple Putin, even if the U.S. says it's not true, harden the embattled Russian leaders' resolve against negotiations or cause them to further escalate an already merciless war against civilians. Again, that's on CNN. It was also on CNN yesterday that the ranking member of the Foreign Relations Committee, Idaho Senator Republican Jim Risch, talked about the president's remarks, what it might do in the world of foreign policy, particularly in discussions with Russia and Ukraine going on. Here's some of his comments from yesterday.
I think most people who don't deal in the lane of foreign relations don't realize that those 9 words that he uttered would cause the kind of eruption that they did. But anytime you say, or even as he did, suggest that the policy was regime change, it's going to cause a huge problem. This administration has done everything they can to stop escalating. There's not a whole lot more you can do to escalate than to call for regime change. So look,
Dead
tried
ass.
to walk it back immediately. Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, tried to walk it back.
Everyone tried walking it back.
Right
And everyone tried walking it back, and Biden's like, no, that's exactly what I said.
now. That is not the policy of the United States of America. Please, Mr. President, stay on script.
You said for those who are not familiar with the way foreign policy works, they don't understand how big of a deal it is. Can you enlighten people? Can you explain why you think it was so bad and what the ramifications could be?
Well, I think I don't need to do that as much as everybody who listened to it's done that. You've seen the stories that have come up all over the world because that was a announcement of a change in policy. Regime change is something that is existential. I mean, you just don't do that. And the suggestion was made that we were changing policy and going to regime change. That is not the policy of the United States, and that was not in the speech. As you know, that was an ad lib of his at the end of what was a good speech, and whoever wrote it did a good job, hit the right notes, and then to have that at the end, the sour note at the end was unfortunate, to say the least.
The Axios group put out a map earlier today taking a look at currently occupied territory in Ukraine. They show it by this shading along the edges there, particularly on the Russia and Ukraine border of Russian occupied territory. When it comes to cities that are surrounded by Russian forces, Mariupol being highlighted, 85% destroyed according to some reporting here in the papers, also Kharkiv as well. And then it also highlights those nuclear power plants that are under attack also in the country. Again, Axios providing that map this morning. Howard Mortman from C-SPAN sitting out. A picture, of course, video also that you can find at our website at cspan.org, our C-SPAN Now app as well, of Secretary of State Blinken in for that summit with Israeli and Arab diplomats talking about Ukraine as well. You can find that on our Twitter feed. Let's hear from Mary in Fort Washington, Maryland, Democrats line.
Morning, C-SPAN and listeners and viewers. I just think it's like I said, what President Biden said. The media has taken it on as a new thing or something. Like, oh, this is so wonderful. Let's carry it on and on and on and on and on.
And on and on and on.
I believe in it too. Putin shouldn't be in power, but that's going to have to be up to the Russian people to take him down. I don't believe any dictator should be in power, but it's up to the people that allow him to dictate them. They have to take him down. And what the former president said, so many lies all day long, that doesn't make any sense. Like I said, the media is complicit in this.
Well, when you say that, the current president and what he said,
the media is complicit in this.
The process that's going on when it comes to Ukraine.
Well, it doesn't help because what the media does, took it and flew with it, They could have just said, okay, he said that. That's what he means. But it is not part of our policy, and we know that.
And do you think it's appropriate for presidents to say things like that?
No, not all the time, but I don't think it's the end of the world because he said it. Like I said, the media keeps applying it and using it for ratings right now. I think you should be talking about what Clarence Thomas's wife is doing right now. She's being a traitor to this country.
Wow.
And Republicans that are for Putin, go over there and support him. And all the people that want a war, suit your kids up and march right on over there and go for it.
Okay.
That's all I have to say right now, because I think the media is pretty much complicit.
Okay. You said that, and just to highlight the fact we don't take ratings here at the network, so 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, and 202-748-8002 for independents. If you want to call in and give your comments on these things over the weekend and into today when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, you can text us at 202-748-8003. When it comes to issues concerns over nuclear programs, particularly Russia's, it's highlighted in the Wall Street Journal today. Thomas Grove with the story under the headline that Putin's warnings amplify fears of nuclear use, saying the point of a tactical nuclear strike to end a conventional conflict based on doctrine known as, quote, escalate to de-escalate, is to change the rules on the battlefield while shifting the burden of escalation onto your opponent. That was Elbridge Colby, the co-founder of the Marathon Initiative, a policy initiative focused on great power competition. Quote, Putin could use a smaller warhead to protect what his conventional forces are doing, he said. The Ukrainians may be the target, but the real target politically would be the U.S. and the West. The story adding that while the U.S. on one hand has made it clear that it has no plans to cross any nuclear red lines in Ukraine, Washington has signaled the presence of its nuclear-capable forces in Europe this month, weeks before the invasion. The U.S. sent B-52 strategic bombers to exercise with British and European air forces. And this quotes Hans Christensen of the Nuclear Information Project at the Federation of American Scientists, who says there's already some kind of signaling going on in Europe. Again, if you want to see that for yourself, the Wall Street Journal is where you can pick up that story. Let's hear from Joseph here in Washington, D.C. Democrats line, hi.
Hi, good morning, Pedro. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
I have to respectfully disagree with the previous caller. Now is not the time to be sowing doubt and mistrust in the media. When journalists are under attack, that's a pretty good indication that you are on the wrong side of history. So we need to be supporting our media and our journalists, the ones who are telling the truth, the ones who are on the ground reporting what's going on in Ukraine as much as possible. My other point is for people calling in saying, Biden needs to be doing more, to the 56% of people who say that Biden's not being tough enough. I mean, my question to you is, what more do you want him to do? I mean, we're doing everything short of putting boots on the ground. And again, if you listen, I've been listening to your coverage of this every morning, basically since the invasion. And everyone who's called in, who's either active military, ex-military, veterans, have said, listen, we don't need to do that. War is hell. We do not need to, it's where I agree with the previous caller. We do not need to send our sons and daughters all to war to fight for, this idea of democracy. Like it has to come from the top. And to the other caller's point, I think was a tragic misstep for Biden to say what he said at the end of his speech. It was a great speech, but.
Do you think it was a flub? As far some people would cast it as just a flub, spoken out of emotion.
A flub is a flub when you're an average everyday citizen like you or me. But when you're the president of the United States, flubs have consequences. And unfortunately, what I think that consequence is going to be is more lives lost and more propaganda ammunition for the Russian war machine.
Okay. Joseph there in Washington, D.C. From our independent line, we'll hear from John. He's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Well, listen, this problem with Ukraine is something that America has been very involved, including Joe Biden when he was in the Obama administration. And everything we've done has been bad, hasn't helped anything. But the American people need to be well aware that the Russian military that they think is installed in Ukraine is not there to occupy Ukraine. They're using a very small part of their force because they must keep themselves aware of being attacked from other people. So their large army is not there. But Americans need to be very thoughtful of it. We don't need to get into a blood war with Russia because history tells us how that works out. And we won't be sitting in our comfortable homes. And
so as far as what's currently being done by the United States and other countries, how far does it go? And do you think we've hit a stalemate of sorts when it comes to activities in Ukraine?
I think we should just back out of it and let the Russians work it out with their kin people and stay out of it.
Oh, God.
And to use Ukraine as a sword to attack Russia because Russia doesn't go along with most of the world, but they don't attack most of the world unless you get in their natural interest. And then if you do that, any country, including the United States, will have some method of getting you to see things their way. And that's what the Russians are doing. And they're not going to stop. And we do not need to be into a military competition with Russia because they're determined and we're not. We like to talk about it, and they're more about doing it. So I'm an American who believes that Americans should take care of Americans and get along with everybody else, but we don't do too good a job of that. So people should be thoughtful about what do you want your future to be. We already have suffered enough from this.
Okay.
This problem in Russia is going to...
Let's hear from Vince. Let's hear from Vince in Pennsylvania, Republican line.
Good morning. What the previous caller said about the media is complicit. I wonder, why aren't people talking about ceasefires or peace? In previous wars, there's discussion on the news about, progress in peace talks. And this one is just about, well, how many more weapons have we sent? If a weapon gets sent, it's going to get used. If it gets used, people are going to get killed. This is not our war.
Do you think that peace talks are achievable at this point?
Well, you have to try. And is it our war? It seems like it is a proxy war. Joe Biden, he is our president, but he is being selfish. We deserve better. We deserve a president who can think on his feet, who does more than just read. We need Congress to step in and slow this thing down because it feels really bad to me. And we need to start talking about peace.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. That's Vince there in Pennsylvania. We'll hear from Doug next. He's in South Dakota, Democrats line.
Yeah, good morning, Pedro. We got a Charlie's War going on again, I believe. Russia is a nuclear country, not like Iraq and Afghanistan, where we've kind of stuck our noses in it before. But Putin has an air force, also a navy. He has 2/3 as many submarines as we do. Also hypersonic missiles, which really I don't think we can shoot them down. If we do start shooting Russians, Putin will probably start retaliating and killing Americans right across from Alaska. It's only 75 miles from Alaska to Russia in actuality. And the main line, I don't know, what can he protect 200 miles off coast? He could send one of them missiles 1,000 miles away and probably probably be aiming at that building behind you for one, and the Pentagon for second, and he could be using conventional instead of nuclear.
So in light of all that, then what does that leave as far as the United States and other countries that are assisting in this effort?
A Charlie's War, basically. We'll just keep feeding it, and the Ukraine people are doing all the fighting for us. But Putin's insane, and he proved it actually by the definition of insanity. Continued to do the same thing over and over again with the same results. Afghanistan, Charlie's War, that was first. Then we do the same, and now he is getting the same results out of Ukraine. Anyone that says Putin's smart has to be stupid to call the sick baby and old person killer smart.
Okay, that's Doug, Stephen Duncan from Twitter. When it comes to President Biden's efforts, saying President Biden doing a good job on this, just keep it going in Ukraine. It's got the momentum because they have courage and are faithful, or in the right. He also adds that Putin must be stopped. Again, that's just one way you can reach out to us and let us know your thoughts. Twitter is at CSPANWJ. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/CSPAN, and the lines are 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, and Independents, 202-748-8002. You can post on the social media sites. You can also follow the show at Instagram too. Let's hear from Frank. Frank in Indiana, Independent Line.
Good morning. I have to clear my mind from a lot of the stuff I've been hearing. First off, Putin using nuclear weapons in Ukraine. First, his troops are there. He'd have to be nuking his own people right there. Second, nuclear radiation doesn't just stay within the confines of the Ukrainian borders. It would drift. And if it drifts across Europe, we're involved. If it drifts back into Russia, he's killing his own people. Is he suicidal? Is he crazy, as some have suggested? I don't know. I know he's a criminal.
I don't know.
He's part of an organized criminal mafia in Russia. He's not a
I like this guy.
leader. He's not a president. He's an organized crime family boss. Putin does not have any reservations about calling for the execution or
I wonder
of Zelensky.
if they've done anything on the Supreme Court nominee for viewer or for C-SPAN callers or not.
Who is a duly elected president in Ukraine, who has been elected by the people of Ukraine. He sends hit squads to eliminate Zelensky and his family, to kill his wife and kids.
So in light of all that, what do we do?
Go ahead.
Well, in light of all that, what do we do then?
I think President I think President Biden had it right, except he probably put it in the wrong way. If he had couched it in the language of Putin is not a duly elected president of the country of Russia, and he's calling for the elimination of Zelensky, that it makes him a criminal. It makes him not a president, but a criminal.
Okay, that's Frank there, giving his thoughts this morning. Later on this week, or in fact today, or as early as today, we are expected to see the budget requests for 2023 from President Biden. This is the request that he'll make to Congress. When it comes to national security issues, UPI picking up a story and reporting by Bloomberg, reporting that the president plans to request $813 billion in national security spending. That would include $773 billion for the Pentagon. The reported defense spending proposal marks an increase of $31 billion, or 4%, from approved spending in the current fiscal year, and about $43 billion more than the White House Budget Office projected last year for the 2023 fiscal year. It also falls short of a request from a group of 40 Republican lawmakers led by Mike Rogers of Alabama and Senator Jim Inhofe of Oklahoma, who sent a letter requesting that the president increase military spending by 5%, saying that, quote, threats to our national security have grown exponentially during the past year. This is from Alex in St. Louis, Missouri, Republican line.
First things first, I want to say to the boomers with the eyes on the screen, your all's viewpoints on this is actually completely wrong. The Russia has been aligned with China for a very long time, and these sanctions are not hurting the Russian government, nor is it helping the Ukrainian people. In all reality, you cut them off from Google Pay and all these other things to the citizens, so now they can't ride the train or buy all these things in their markets. But all that did was allow China to come in with PayPay and QR codes to expand the technological arm of the CCP. well, we're trying to spread our values there while the Ukrainians don't support trans rights. Whether you support that or not, I mean, listen.
Okay, sorry, 1 second. I have to literally say this out loud. User values equals 159. User values 2 equals user value 1. User value 1 equals user value 0. Which means 2 would equal 0.
Our viewpoints on this are completely wrong. Putin is not dumb. Part
Wait.
of the Communist Manifesto
No, it would not, because once 1 becomes 0, it becomes a new number. Okay.
says, what is 100 million people to the March of Progress? And these people are saying, well, he won't nuke his own people or whatever. I highly doubt that nukes are ever going to get launched again. This is the Western perspective of things. You're talking to a person who's not born in America. You're looking at this from a Western perspective. He's not going to nuke anyone. And instead of fighting this war on the ground, we need to fight this war economically.
Okay. Let's hear from Brent on our line for Democrats, Suitland, Maryland. Hello.
Good morning. I want to echo what Frank said. I think number one, the tenor of what's going on here is based on Putin's pace, not Joe Biden's pace. And I think we can all ask the question, well, what do we do? Or what should Joe Biden do? Or what would anyone do? First of all, it's in Europe. And I think Europe is acting. And I think Biden was right there in Poland, right beside Ukraine. And I think that's very symbolic of our leadership and what we are trying to do. Also, I think we're making too much of those last 9 words, because the reality is that Putin has already escalated this. He's already got all of his troops, all of his arms. He's already killed however many Ukrainians and Russians who have died as a result of this invasion. So the thought that, Putin was going to hear the 99% of that speech and all of a sudden back down until Joe Biden said he shouldn't remain in power. Putin already knows how everyone feels about whether or not he should remain in power. So I heard you ask someone else, what should we do? I hope that the people who are running our country are smart and can help us and the rest of the world find a peaceful way to conclude this.
Okay. Brent, in Maryland, USA Today reporting when it comes to that major city that we showed you on the map, Mariupol, 85% destroyed, according to some reporting describing that it doesn't even exist anymore. That was one of the points made by former Army General under the Obama administration, and CIA Director David Petraeus talked about that conflict in Mariupol. He described it as Ukraine's Alamo. Here's more of his explanation from yesterday.
It's fighting to the last defender and pinning down multiple Russian battalions in so doing very heroically. But ultimately, it looks as if it's going to have to collapse. It's going to be taken. And when it does, that is a moment of some peril for Ukraine, because now that port can be used by the Russians. Remember, they were using a port just to the west of that where a ship was hit and destroyed, Russian ship. They'll now have quite a good port on the Sea of Azov out to the Black Sea. And then it will free up a number of battalions that were the ones that have been closing the circle, closing the noose on Mariupol, who can then push further north and perhaps enable Russia to achieve what it has now said as it's redefined its objectives to taking control of all of the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, provinces, if you will, and then solidifying its grip on a land corridor from the Donbass, from those 2 oblasts all the way to Crimea. So this is going to be a very tenuous period the next few days as we see what happens in Mariupol, what the Russians are able to do as a result of it, and then how the Ukrainians can respond, because it's a very long distance from anywhere where they might have forces that they could possibly spare.
And just to show you the headline about Mariupol, this is from the New York Times this morning. They describing it teetering amid signs Russia's shifting focus, with a photograph by Roman Pipoli from the EPA photography service. Again, that's just some of the reporting coming from the papers when it comes to activities in Ukraine. Matt in Bladensburg, Maryland, Democrats line. Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm well, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that, the Ukraine issue is, it's great entertainment for people, these armchair warriors, but we have treason occurring
Armchair
in our country.
warriors.
3 branches of government right now, and we really need to start paying attention to what happened with Clarence Thomas and what happened at the Capitol. Doesn't C-SPAN care that our country is going to fall apart? Like I said, it's great entertainment, but let's focus on something that matters here.
What's C-SPAN supposed to do about it?
I think he's gone. Let's hear from Alex.
Oh my God, he left.
Hi.
He's not about it.
Hey, this is Alex. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Go ahead.
The Ukraine, I think Biden, he needs to, let Zelensky keep that war to himself. What he's trying to do here, because right now Biden is at 40%, and he's, his rating on approval is just dropping like, he's going down. He just needs to change some things up there, and I think his slip up was about Putin. I mean, the real question is, he does need to be removed.
When you say change some things up, what do you mean by that?
Well, what I have a problem with is you have NATO, all these members, here we are against bullies and stuff, and it feels like these NATO countries are all against Putin. Yes, what he's doing is absolutely wrong, but it just feels like, that he's just, all these NATO members are going to bully up and they're all going to get together. And it just seems that there's money involved here behind this. I mean, why are we so involved with the Ukraine? I understand they're a country that's, suffering and they're having dying every day, but there's all those stories about, the laptop of Hunter Biden. There's the money about President Biden. I mean, there's just
Wait, but how does the war in Ukraine, how does the invasion of Ukraine deal with the money issue? How does that boil down to a money issue in your mind?
Well, in the past couple of years, that's all we've been hearing about Hunter Biden being on a board for that area, for that part of Europe and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a little strange what's going on. But I think we need to get back to the American people here. He was more involved with the border in the Ukraine than he is with the southern border here in the United States. I mean, what happened to the restaurants? What happened to the help wanted? What happened to all these stories? What happened to everything?
Let's go to John in Illinois, Democrats line. John and Mary in Illinois. Hi.
Hey, Pedro. Good morning.
Morning.
You're doing a really good job today, too, by the way.
Bro, Pedro's a badass.
But what I was going to say is I'm kind of glad that Biden said what he said. And it is true. Putin should be removed. And maybe in some way it'll help the Russian people stand up. And hopefully it'll make Putin a little bit more paranoid. And another thing I would like to see Biden do, or the United States do, is support Kazakhstan and the opposition in Belarus. It wasn't that long ago that Kazakhstan had an uprising where Putin had to send troops in to stop it. And it wasn't that long ago that people were taken to the streets in Belarus, and Putin had to send troops in there to stop it.
Do you think that the comments that the president made about Vladimir Putin complicate efforts?
Not so much, because, again, I think Putin is on a razor's edge right now, and in a comment like that can really make him paranoid, and he's already starting to make certain generals somewhat disappear here and there. Of course, the Ukrainians are doing their part for that matter as well. But I think that it kind of drives Putin maybe even to make more mistakes. And as far as mistakes go, it was a mistake to get into Ukraine, and I hope those people are allowed to control their destiny. And if they want to take back Crimea, if they want to take back the Donbass, I want to see us make every effort to give them that back, because it is theirs and they are fighting for it.
Washington Post columnist Max Boot talks about the statements of President Biden over the weekend under the headline, "Biden's hostility towards Putin was not a gaffe." He writes this in part saying, "I wonder if perhaps history will vindicate this Biden, quote, gaffe in much the way that many historians have praised comments by President Ronald Reagan that were once seen as dangerously provocative. Reagan called the Soviet Union, quote, an evil empire and predicted it would wind up on the, quote, ash heap of history. Those tough but true words contributed to raising superpower tensions in the early 1980s, but they also inspired many behind the Iron Curtain to fight for freedom. After the Berlin Wall came down, many saw Reagan as a visionary, not a warmonger." Again, that's in the Washington Post this morning, of the editors of the Wall Street Journal taking a look at comments by Mr. Biden under the headline, "The President We Have." They write this, saying members of Congress of both parties will have to play a more assertive role. And the good news is they've been doing so on good effect on Ukraine. Congress has stiffened Mr. Biden's resolve on sanctions and military aid. The pattern is that the White House resists a tougher policy until it faces a defeat or difficult vote on Capitol Hill. Bipartisan coalitions of the willing will be even more important as the war continues and threats from Iran, China, and North Korea escalate. They add Mr. Biden's muscular assertions in the written text of his Warsaw speech need to be supported by more than rhetoric. The U.S. and the West need to urgently restore and strengthen the credibility of their military and diplomatic deterrence. The editors write that more hawkish advisors would send a more determined signal to the world, and especially to adversaries. Again, that's the Wall Street Journal if you want to read the editor's thoughts this morning in Connecticut, Windsor, Connecticut, Independent Line. We will hear from Kevin. Go ahead.
How you doing? Good morning. Yeah, I mean, we got people forgot about what happened in World War II. We got a new Hitler in this generation, you know, and that guy from Arizona, one word he didn't throw out there was democracy, you know, and he's hitting Biden, it ain't like Trump when Trump gave the classified information to the Russians and nobody knew about it until the Russians let that picture out with them in the Oval Office, or about Trump at Helsinki when he trusted Putin to say the U.S. intelligence.
And how does this relate to current events in Ukraine?
I mean, we got to help those people out. You know, democracy. I mean, it's about freedom. That guy in Arizona don't know nothing about freedom. You know, and what the country goes through. I remember World War II. My father was telling us. My mom worked the factories. You know, everybody pulled their weight back then. You know, I mean.
And do you think the United States has done enough, or do you think it needs to do more?
Well, I mean, do as much as they can without putting boots in the ground there, you know, because you don't want to start a third war. But, you know, what Biden said about Putin, regime change, yeah, everybody feels that way. You know, you got to get rid of the guy, just like Hitler. You had to get rid of Hitler, you know.
Luis in Rancho Cucamonga, California, Republican Line, you're next.
Good morning, Pedro. Thanks for the opportunity. My concern is the level of involvement and the lack of involvement by the European countries. You know, we're acting as if we want to take the lead on this issue when the Europeans should have to take the lead. It's their continent, and I'm not diminishing the importance of Ukraine. Ukraine is very important, but there are many issues in our own country that are equally important to us. But I think we need to let the Europeans handle this matter more, or be at the same level with the Europeans. I think I need a Macron to speak on issues. I need the Chancellor of Germany to speak to issues, and the Italians and the Spaniards, and not so much Joe Biden.
You don't think that the European countries are not doing that through NATO?
Well, I haven't heard anything about the troop movements of European countries to NATO countries to protect them. I'm only hearing about American troops being deployed, and I haven't heard about any expenditures or investments by European countries to help the Ukrainians. All I hear about is Americans.
Well, American troops are there to support NATO as far as backing them up. It's not a direct involvement in the country.
I agree, but I'd like to hear more about Spaniards sending troops. I'd like to hear more about the French sending troops, because the concern that I have is this: Europe needs to do something for itself. President Trump was right. The Europeans had to give their 2% for their national defense, and they haven't been doing it. Now, the Europeans have to do something for themselves before we even get involved with troops.
We saw Germany just recently deciding to raise its defense budget. Do you think that's a step in the right direction?
Most definitely, but I also need to hear Germans sending troops to the front line to help other countries to protect Poland and to protect others. I'm not diminishing the importance of Ukraine. I'm only concerned about the involvement of the United States being at a greater level than the Europeans. This is the European theater. The Europeans have to do something for themselves. Lord knows that in the past they haven't. We've always had to come in and protect them, correct?
Let's go to Nate, Tallahassee, Florida, Independent Line.
Yes, good morning, Pedro. You stole my thunder when you talked about what Reagan said about the Russians. But the reason I called is because we spent about a year and a half calling Mr. Biden weak. And the minute he make a muscular statement, then the same people turn around and say, well, he shouldn't have said that.
Wow, that's a really good point. Oh, that's a really good point. Moment he starts doing anything strong, they're like, "Oh my god, are you gonna destroy? You're gonna kill them?" Oh my god, dude! They literally just like Biden bad. They blamed everyone for the Orange Man bad, and now they're doing Sleepy Joe bad.
And the Democrats are not out there defending. They're showing how weak their entire party is. My whole point is that, hey, when you pick up a line, you say, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, I can almost tell you which side they're going to be on. Okay? And if Mr. Trump has said the exact same things, the same people will have the opposite opinion and say, well, wow, it shows how strong Trump is. They're afraid of him. He's going to put him in his place. But when Biden says it, all of a sudden he shouldn't. He should have kept his mouth shut. He's escalating and all of this. And it just depends on which side you wake up in the morning on. Okay? So have a good day.
Okay, that's Nate there in Florida. We'll hear from Oklahoma, Democrats line. This is Clyde. Hello.
Hello. How y'all doing today?
Fine, thank you. You're on. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, if they'd done what Patton said after the Second World War, he said need to invade Russia then because, he believed in the Bible at least. And, and then they said that he was crazy for thinking it. Well, we wouldn't be here now if they would have done at least what one general had to say about it then. That's the way history is. It comes back to haunt you.
Okay, if that's the case, then what should we do at this point?
Well, that's left up to you and God and asking him questions because he's the one's got all the answers.
What do you think the president should do at this point?
Ask him. All you got to do is ask him. Reading was hung on the cross so you can talk to him.
Okay, that's Clyde there in Tennessee. Let's hear from the U.S. ambassador to NATO. On the Sunday shows yesterday, was asked about the repeated requests from Ukraine for weapons and assistance. And here's some of that back and forth on the Sunday shows yesterday.
We've talked with them regularly about their defense needs. We are working with them each and every week to determine how we can continue to help them with anti-air assets, anti-armor. We've offered Stingers, we've provided Javelins, and many other members of the NATO alliance are doing the same thing. I think about 2/3 of the NATO alliance are now providing lethal assistance to Ukraine. Every ally is making a contribution. Some are providing humanitarian support, some are providing lethal, most are doing both.
You've heard, I'm sure, President Zelensky say just this weekend that he wants from NATO only 1% of what it has in tanks and planes to go to Ukraine. He said, you have thousands of fighter jets, but we have not been given one yet. So yes or no, will NATO give Ukraine what President Zelensky is asking for?
Well, this is an evolving conversation. Again, we've spoken with President Zelensky many times in recent weeks. We've heard their requests for assistance. In many cases, we've delivered those anti-aircraft, anti-armor capabilities. We are assessing their air defense needs. But the answer is no. If you're asking about the Soviet-era jets, the United States has decided that the particular proposal put forward by Poland is untenable. But honestly, if any NATO ally wanted to provide those types of pieces of equipment, the fighter jets, the MiGs, that is a sovereign decision. They can take that sovereign decision. But right now, the United States is very much focused on their air defense needs, and we're delivering multiple capabilities to try and address those requirements.
When it comes to the president's statements, this is Myland off of Twitter saying President Joe Biden is very Reagan-like, and that's not bad. We also have a tweet from Tony. Says there's a time for tough talk and a time for conciliatory words. I fear the president has not got the timing right. Again, if you want to post on Twitter, at CSPAN-WJ is how you do that. Let's hear from Steve. Steve in Knoxville, Tennessee, Republican line. Go ahead, you're on.
Well, Pedro, this is absolutely an illegal genocidal war of aggression, and I think that Biden is deliberately slow-walking the supplies that the Ukrainians need, from what I've heard. I've heard that he's only supplying 1/10 of the switchblades that they really need, and that they haven't got I think they're the S-300 defense systems. And from what Zelensky is saying, Zelensky sounds kind of desperate to get the supplies. It feel like they're being slow-walked by the Biden people.
And what are you basing those assumptions on, or at least those assertions? What are you basing that on?
Oh, just what I've heard from some generals, retired generals, talking like they're supplying 100 switchblades. They need 1,000.
I'll point you to the recent press briefings about the Pentagon talking about some of those supplies, even as late as last week, talking about some of those supplies reaching Ukraine. Of course, there's a lot there in those Pentagon press briefings. When they do take place, we tape them and we show them to you and give you the ability to hear from the Defense Department, or if it's the White House or any other forum when it comes to matters these days. We invite you to go to our website at cspan.org to follow along when it comes to those briefings. You can also follow along at our C-SPAN Now app when they take place. From Thelma, Bronx, New York, Democrats Line.
Hello, good morning. I would like to say Mr. Biden is doing a wonderful job. They criticize him for so long. Yes, good morning. I'm calling from New York. I just want to say Mr. Biden is doing a wonderful job. God bless him. They criticize him, saying how weak he is. He's weak. Now he said what he says. And all of a sudden the Republican is saying he's too mean to Putin. Mr. Biden, keep up the good work. You are covered under the blood.
Why do you think that the president's statements on Putin were appropriate?
It is because that's what he says, and it's the right thing. A lot of people won't say it, but they think what Mr. Biden said. He said his mind, and that's what he thinks, and is appropriate. And before the Republicans, they kept saying, he's weak, he's not strong. Now the same Republican, the hypocrites, they are hypocrites. Now they're saying Mr. Biden is too mean to Putin. God bless Mr. Biden. He's doing a wonderful job.
Okay, that's Thelma, New York. There's a lot going on when it comes to activities here in the United States, and particularly the U.S. Congress. Even early as this week, the House returns later today. That will be at 2 o'clock Eastern. Members will vote later in the week on legalizing marijuana at the federal level. The Senate at 3 o'clock today will meet. Senators will vote on final passage of legislation to increase U.S. competitiveness with China later in the week.
That's this week? That's so
will
cool.
vote on the confirmation of Nani Colaretti to be the White House Budget Deputy Director. Her Senate vote comes the same week that the president, as you heard, releasing his 2023 budget. Live coverage on the House on C-SPAN, on the Senate on C-SPAN 2. cspan.org is where you can follow along, as well as our C-SPAN Now app. A few more minutes of this before we go to our next segment. We'll hear from Eric in Columbus, Georgia, Republican Line.
Hey, thank you for taking my call. I have 5 points to make quickly. I believe this is the whole thing. It's a shell game. It's just a game of distraction. Look over there while all this other stuff is going on here in America. And I think it's convenient for him to get involved in this for that reason. That's one point. The other point I would like to make is I think, everybody's wondering why Joe Biden just doesn't do anything to Russia. You know why I don't think that he will? It's because everyone, please listen, Russia is notorious for having dirt on people. I suspect that he's holding back because Putin has dirt on him. The other thing I'd like to say.
What does this guy want to see out of Biden? Like, what is holding back? Because, there's literally some people saying that any single thing he does is going to start World War III, and then you have other people, and then him speaking his mind about Putin's legitimacy as a leader. That's too strong of speech, and he's inflammatory. These inflammatory statements are aggravating the situation into World War III. You either shit or get off the pot, bro. We're doing everything we can short of war.
Please, Americans, wake up. Every war we have been in, even all the way back to the Vietnam War, it's all been lies. It's all been lies. They've all lied to us. Russia is saying what they're saying on their TV about, this is the next point, Russia is saying what they're saying on their TV about us. They're saying bad things about us like we're saying about them. It's all propaganda.
Okay. Okay. We'll go to Bill. Bill in Newfield, New Jersey, independent line.
I wish that NATO would take the Ukraine, make them part of NATO. If they can't, some of the neighboring countries that are part of NATO, like Poland and Hungary and Slovakia, I think that the president of the Ukraine should go and talk to those people, tell them, I would like to turn over part of my country to you, and make an agreement that I give it to you now so that that land will now be part of NATO because it's part of this other country, and that I get it back in a certain amount of time. That would.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that will resolve it?
Trying to do.
Why do you think that will resolve the issue?
Well, I'm sorry?
Why do you think that will resolve the issue?
It will resolve the issue because then the land that is now Ukraine would no longer be Ukraine. It would be part of Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary and its neighboring countries. Then it would be part of NATO. So it would be defeating Putin, who is saying he doesn't want it to be part of NATO.
Go to Terry in Logan, Iowa, Republican line.
Good morning, Pedro. Say, listen, I have a major interest in the oil industry, and the early part of the show, you read an article in regards to someone from the State Department making a statement to the Saudis, I believe. Could you rephrase that and go back and look and see what you said?
I said the Secretary of State's meeting with Israeli and Arab diplomats today when it comes to Ukraine.
Yeah, but did he say that it was cowardice?
I don't have the article in front of me, and we're running close to out of time on this to find it. So go ahead and make your point.
Well, I just tried to look up what you had said, and
I think it was in the. I think the story was in the Washington Post this morning. If you want to look it up online at their site.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's Terry there, Logan, Pennsylvania, finishing off this hour of calls. Thank you for those participated. We'll continue on with similar topics, not only when it comes to efforts overseas, but also domestically here. Two reporters joining us for that conversation. Wall Street Journal congressional reporter Siobhan Hughes will also be joined by USA Today's White House reporter Joey Garrison to talk about the week ahead in Washington. Later on in the program, Georgetown University's Matthew Kranig talks about the potential nuclear threat posed by Russia, plus NATO's efforts to support Ukraine. Those conversations coming up on Washington Journal.
That music, though. Ah, so lovely. Lovely, pleasant. Thank you, Pedro. Open Phones Part 1. Let's do Open Phones Part 2.
.org or scan the code with your
Whoa.
smartphone. Every C-SPAN shop purchase helps support C-SPAN's nonprofit operation.
Washington Journal continues.
Again, you can also post on our social media sites. Facebook is at facebook.com/cspan, and our Twitter feed is at cspanwj. Politico writes more about what you'll expect to hear later on today from the president when it comes to that wealth tax that our guest earlier referenced. This reporting saying it could revive the debate in Washington over taxing the 1%, in this case the top 0.01%. The White House will require households worth more than $100 million to pay at least 20% in taxes on a combination of both their income and their unrealized gains in things like stock portfolios, something that's not currently taxed. The administration says that would generate $360 billion over the next decade, with half of that coming from billionaires. Under the section that it might be a tough sell, because it says rank and file Democrats have already rejected similar wealth tax proposals from Senators Elizabeth Warren and Ron Wyden. The latest plan would also amount to a major change in the tax system and would likely face a constitutional challenge. Again, look for that to play out later today when the president does make that 2023 budget request. Also later on this week, Congress expected to vote on the legalization of marijuana. That will be on the House side. You can continue on calling on those topics during this open forum or things you've seen in the show today. 202-748-8000 for Democrats. Republicans 202-748-8001. Independents 202-748-8002. We'll start with Rich in Fairfax, Virginia, independent line. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I love your program. I have one question and I'd like to make a comment. I know everybody keeps calling Putin a war criminal, but it's my understanding, unless I'm incorrect, that neither Russia or the United States signed the agreement for, I think it's the International Criminal Court or ICC. So I don't know why they keep saying that. So it would be great if you guys could have a show or a segment that discussed that particular situation and kind of put that to bed one way or the other. And then the other comment I had is there is a coming tsunami of food shortages and trucking and diesel fuel prices going up. So, I mean, I listen to you guys because, I mean, between the people that call in and you, or C-SPAN, I seem to get the best news I can possibly get. So that's in the offing too, and nobody's saying anything about that. So it's more just a comment and a question this morning. Thank you.
That's Rich in Virginia. Let's hear from Patricia in Michigan, Republican line. Hi.
Hi. Good morning.
Morning.
I usually don't make a comment, but I love the colors you're wearing today.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh my goodness.
The news media and the pundits are pulling their hair out over what Biden said. Putin could care less what Biden said. He's just a gnat that Putin swats aside.
Hey, kitty.
He watched this president.
Mwah, I love you.
Our economy run from Afghanistan with his legs between his tail between his legs. He has no respect for this president. That's all I have to say. Thanks a lot.
Let's go to Tim. Tim in Ohio, in Toledo, Democrats line.
Hello, good morning. I just wanted to say that it's kind of, I mean, I got told before, it's kind of off the subject. But for me, like I said, when I tell people, like 70% Democrat, 30% Republican. Both sides have good points. But any politician, anybody, I don't care if it's a politician or not, anybody that only badmouths somebody else and only never really says what they're going to do, but they just keep attacking their opponents, that's not a good person. I think if we could get it down to the politicians when they go on there and their campaign, whatever, don't tell me what the other guy's going to do. That guy will tell me what he's going to do. Tell me what you're going to do. We could get it to where politicians do not attack other politicians.
Yeah.
They only talk about themselves.
I love that idea too. I wish that was more of the vibe. Because like, I don't know, it's like Trump took a formula we already had and took it to its extreme. We can't even blame Trump for the environment that we're sitting in now. Like, this was incredibly bipartisan beforehand. He just like took it to the next level.
So, and if we could just get rid of the R and the D off the election thing and just vote for the person, everybody be independent and just vote for the person who's the best person. Like I said, I'm a Democrat, but Kasich is a great guy. I mean, he'd be a great leader. He's a Republican. Both sides have good and bad people. We got to stop attacking the other people. That's what's destroying this country. And I hate to bring it up, but that was the last President Trump. This whole thing, even now, he just keeps attacking other people, other people, other people, other people. Tell me what you're going to do. I don't, to me, that makes sense. I'm sorry if I, get on somebody's, touching a nerve spot, but what's wrong with that?
Okay. Tim in Ohio. Tim in Ohio. Let's go to Stephen in Arizona, independent line.
Yes, hello. I'm calling about the tax on the rich. I'm never going to be as rich as anyone who makes $100 million a year, but the Democrats always use this talking point. They demonize people who make it. How rich is Biden? I mean, he's one of them, but he pretends not to be one of them. And what about that laptop? I hope you have a show on the laptop now that the New York Times said that it's true. How much money are the Bidens making? It's just rhetoric. We're going to tax the rich to get us out of this mess.
Okay.
And that's, it's just too much.
That's Stephen in Arizona. The laptop being a topic of conversation these days. I'll point you to a program that C-SPAN recorded with New York Post columnist Miranda Devine, Laptop from Hell, in which it talks about the Hunter
Laptop from Hell
significance. You can still find that on our website at cspan.org, an interview she did on our Book TV programming, if you want to check it out there for yourself. Let's go to Dennis. Dennis in, and I think I've lost the line. Let's go to Edward. Let's go to Edward in Massachusetts. Democrats line. Hi.
Good morning.
Morning.
Do you want me to go right into my dissertation?
You're on. Go for it.
Okay, but please be advised.
His dissertation.
1295 was introduced in the Senate April 21st, 2021. A bipartisan bill co-sponsored by 13 legislators to form a 7-member committee to make cuts in Social Security and Medicare. And this committee was so-called rescue committee, and no vote will be required by the legislators to enact any of these cuts into law. And this was introduced into the Senate by Senator Mitt Romney.
Then where do you get this information from?
Well, I picked it up on the news. I also have talked to and left a message with AARP about this, and you can check it out. This is fact. I'd make it up.
Okay.
1295 was introduced in the Senate, like I say, on April 21st, 2021. And I don't want to have to go on. I can if you want. It's a bipartisan bill. 13 co-sponsors to form a 7-member commission to cut Social Security and Medicare with.
And why? Oh, I apologize, caller. I do apologize. I wanted to ask you a follow-up, and I pushed the button too early. I apologize for that. Let's go to John. John in Iowa, Republican line.
Good morning.
Morning.
I just have a comment. The situation we have going on in Ukraine and how Joe Biden is handling it, and the rhetoric he spewed about Vladimir Putin over the weekend. And for the callers who are calling in who think he's doing a good job, I'd just like to ask them. He has Russia negotiating for us on an Iran nuclear deal. In what planet does that make sense for us to be using Russia?
Well, Russia's already a part of the JCPOA. They were part of the original body that, along with many other countries in that. So.
I know that. And on what planet does it make any sense for us to not have withdrawn from working through Russia on that project once they invaded Ukraine? They immediately became the enemy of the world. So why would we even want to use them, even if they were involved?
Okay. Let's go to Eric. Eric in Louisiana. Democrats line.
Yeah, this is Eric. This is Eric from Crowley, Louisiana. I want to say that I've been listening to the news, C-SPAN, and everywhere, and I've heard that Putin's been in power for 20 years, and it's about time they get rid of that old man because
I think about that a lot. Like, he's seen 5 different presidency terms. He wasn't there for Clinton. He was there for the end of Clinton. He was definitely there for Bush. And then Obama, Trump, Biden. Yes. 5 different presidencies. It's just crazy to think about.
we have an election every 4 years in November here in the United States of America, and I don't think it's right that Vladimir Putin is knocking down everything that the United States is trying to we're trying to help those people over there. I've seen fires. I've seen explosions on my TV set. It's just disgraceful. You know what I mean? I'm sick about it, and I just want everybody to know Vladimir Putin is ready. He has to get impeached just like Trump did.
Okay.
He's
That's
lit.
Eric there in,
He's hearing.
that's Eric there in
I
Louisiana.
can hear him in the phone. He's like got the volume on his TV going while he's doing this phone call. That had to be so disorienting. Oh my God.
Assistance and help. It was the Ukrainian ambassador to the United
My
States
goodness
on the Sunday show
gracious.
yesterday, talking about calls from Ukraine, continued calls for assistance, and the response of the world community. Here's some of her comments from yesterday.
We clearly understand in Ukraine that anyone who's a war criminal, who attacked neighboring country, who's doing all these atrocities together with all the Russians that are involved, definitely cannot stay in power in a civilized world.
Right.
Now it's all up to for all of us to stop Putin while it's still local in Ukraine, because this war is not only about Ukraine, and this brutal aggression that is going on for 33 days now in every city of Ukraine, and especially in cities like Mariupol and north of Kiev and Kharkiv and others. It's the brutal genocide attempt to eliminate or exterminate Ukrainian nation, but also attack on democracy, attack on anyone who wants to live peacefully in their own country.
President Zelensky seemed to say, hey, words are nice, but we need more than just words. What more do you want the West to do? What are the asks? And not fulfilling these asks, what does this mean to Ukraine's ability to fight this war?
Look, let's look at the facts. For 33 days, Ukraine is defending itself and defending Europe from one of the largest countries, one of the most brutal countries, and a nuclear power, an autocratic state. We are already surprised, many, of the fact that we will not surrender, that we are not only motivated to defend our homes, but we will stand our ground and we will defend every inch of our territory. We need tools and we need all kinds of weapons in order to be able to do so.
From Mosey in Detroit, Michigan, Democrats line. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm fine. Listen, I've just been listening to some of these conversations. You know, some of those people's not old enough, maybe wasn't born when Khrushchev tried to slip those missiles into Cuba when John F. Kennedy was president. He thought John F. Kennedy was a weak president, just like Russia's leader now thinking about Biden. Now, if he had slipped those missiles into Cuba, I was watching it on TV. I was a young man living in Chicago during that time. And we couldn't go to work for a whole week. That was a desperate situation. Now, as soon as we get rid of, as soon as President Trump, ex-President Trump lose, here come Russia trying to do dirt to other countries. Now, the first thing President Trump did when he got elected, he met with Putin. And Putin was Russia was number one, tried to destroy the United States. The second thing he did, he met with Saudi Arabia prince. Now, you're hollering about oil shortage and stuff like that. If you can remember, when the stock market bottomed up in 20, ex-President Trump bought oil from Saudi Arabia. And what happened to that money that he bought that oil with?
Okay, let's go to Cocoa Beach, Florida, Independent Line. This is Mike.
Yeah, good morning. I would like to hear more news about what type of, or how many, if any, additional troops, volunteers are coming into Ukraine. I hear about the Russian reinforcements, but I don't hear about anything, if any, on the Ukraine side. Second, I think Joe Biden was, I don't think they should have walked that back. I think that should have stood, although politics is politics. And I would love to see the Ukrainians use some of those drones against the Russian fleet parked out there in the Black Sea. I think they might stand off a little bit. And I really salute the Ukrainians and their bravery and wish them every success.
Okay.
That's my call.
That's Mike in Cocoa Beach, Florida. The January 6th panel meeting later on today to consider vote on subpoenas for two of former President Trump's allies. It's being reported by the New York Times this morning. It's a 34-page report. The panel argued that the allies, Peter Navarro, a former White House advisor, and Dan Scavino Jr., a former deputy chief of staff, were closely involved in efforts to keep Mr. Trump in power after he lost decisively at the polls. The committee is set to hold a public vote on whether to recommend the charges on Monday. A contempt of Congress charge carries a penalty of up to a year in jail. A recommendation from the panel would send the matter to the full House, which would then have to vote to refer the charge to the Justice Department. As far as that committee, that's going to take place later today. Stay close to our website and our C-SPAN Now app for your chance to see what goes on as far as those efforts are concerned. When it comes to events of January 6th, the Washington Times writing on comments made by legislators on the Sunday shows when it comes to Ginny Thomas and her text. This is for the headline, Democrats demand Thomas's recusal on January 6 cases. Quote, this is unbelievable. You have the wife of a sitting Supreme Court justice advocating for insurrection, advocating for overturning a legal election to the sitting president's chief of staff. That was Amy Klobuchar on ABC's This Week. She goes on to say she also knows this election, these cases are going to come before her husband. It also quotes Senator Rick Scott, Florida Republican, saying yesterday he was confident that Justice Thomas would act appropriately. Quote, first off, I admire and respect Clarence Thomas, he said on Fox News Sunday. He goes on to say, quote, I think he's been a great Supreme Court justice, and Clarence Thomas, in my opinion, will always do the right thing, close quote. So that's just some of the news being played out on that front in the Washington Times. We'll go to Paige in Denton, Texas, Independent Line.
Good morning, sir. I have a question or more or less a statement. I'm trying to understand how is it that Putin is the greatest bad guy in the world when he's only doing the same thing that America does? Then the second thing I'm trying to understand is the Ukraine is just like Mexico or Canada to America. We would do the same thing that Putin's doing if someone done the same thing, or if someone was in the Ukrainian position. I don't want to get all mixed up, but my point is that we would do the same thing that Putin is doing if one of our enemies were in Mexico or Canada.
What makes you believe that?
All right, thank you.
What makes you believe that?
Because we're America. We'll go all the way across the world to start a war. So we're going to defend something that's right there across the border, being Canada or Mexico.
And you're saying that the actions of Russia to Ukraine is the similar actions we would take to either Canada or Mexico.
Exactly, if the situation was the same, yes.
Okay, let's go to Steve. Steve in Alexandria, Virginia, Democrats line. You're next up.
Yeah, hi. Good morning. Thank you for C-SPAN. My question would be did Vladimir Putin get
Danielle in Brooklyn, Maryland, Independent line. I think Brooklyn, Maryland, right? Brooklyn, Maryland.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Baltimore, either way, it's fine. I just wanted to go back to the gentleman 2 calls ago. I don't know if he realizes we've been dealing with a war on drugs with Mexico for umpteen years now. So for him to even say, it's not, I don't know, it kind of made me a little irritated. What's going on over in Russia and Ukraine is no comparison to what we have going on. We're not bombarding people, and when we did invade Afghanistan all those years ago, of course we were under the impression that we were going over there for a good reason, and then of course it turned out that it wasn't. It's just a lot of people have things misconstrued. And then there was another gentleman who said something about the election for the president, but people need to realize that the elections every 2 years are the ones that matter more than what the presidential election matters. and it's kind of irritating that people are getting that a little messed up as well.
Okay, that's Danielle in Maryland. Just a few minutes left in this open forum if you want to call in and give your thoughts. 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, and 202-748-8002 for independents. A lot going on this week when it comes to the House and the Senate. The House coming in at 2 o'clock Eastern today, and one of the things that you'll probably see play out this week is members voting later this week on legalizing marijuana at the federal level. The Senate returns today at 3 o'clock. Senators will vote on the final passage of legislation to increase U.S. competitiveness with China. Also later in the week, they'll vote on the confirmation of President Biden's nominee to be the White House Budget Deputy Director. That Senate vote will come in the same week that we heard earlier, releasing the 2023 budget. Live coverage on the House on C-SPAN, the Senate on C-SPAN too. You can see it at cspan.org and our app too at C-SPAN Now. Let's go to Bonnie in California, Republican line.
I just have a few comments. We should concentrate on the U.S. border, not the Ukrainian border. And I think that the Ukrainian situation is a cover-up of the Biden regime. And if you're going to talk about January 6th, you should put it live TV and show all of the film and take people to court so they can get out and go back to their lives.
The commission will meet later today on those subpoenas.
It's
You can
not
see that live and play out,
okay.
as well as other hearings with commission caller. Are you there? She hung up. Let's go to Denver, Colorado. Independent line. Good morning. You're next.
Good morning. My name is Kevin, and I just want to first say that I'm a 62-year-old African American, and I'm corporate trained and internationally traveled and well educated. And I learned with every problem, and this is a
I'm gonna log off because I'm learning my reaction time. My latency on this is like really, really big, and I can definitely fix it. So I'm gonna get off, call it end for tonight, and come back tomorrow.